I just love this mornings in the mountains. I was a little bit concerned at first that my neighbor over here would start up his chainsaw, which he's prone to do on weekends. But then another thought came, well, so what? It doesn't disturb what is. I was commenting to Kaye this morning that I was just amazed at how much fruit these trees are bearing. The apple trees are almost breaking their limbs off, and the pears over there. Usually we have so many apples, we throw them out to the deer, and they hang around out there waiting for us to throw apples to them. And just the way the trees, the sun shines on the pine needles, that when they hit the pine needles in a certain way, they just shine silver. And you can see the cobwebs out through the trees, every once in a while the sun will hit the cobwebs and you'll see them, the little bugs waking up. That's beautiful. It'd be so nice if everyone lived in Etna.
Yep.
And then every Sunday we could have breakfast. Summer and winter, it's something big here. In wintertime it's just beautiful too because there's no footprints, especially when it freshly snows. And we get nice snow here, just enough, just perfect for me. It's not too much, but when it freshly snows, wow, because there's nothing that breaks the snow except little animals. You'll see little footprints, but there's no human footprints until, of course, you go there. But you can, it's just... We're in the process right now of just the initial process of building another little house back here. Many of you know that I sort of had a vision to build something back there where people could stay. It's not quite that elaborate anymore, I don't think, but Kaye has a little blueprint, some blueprints now of a little house she's going to put back there. We've already started the initial paperwork with the help of some folks are helping us out, guiding us, etc., encouraging us like Mike and Amy and others. So when that gets completed, whenever that does, well, then we'll have two houses here. And I'm not quite sure which one we'll live in yet. But whatever. Obviously we can't live in both of them. So yesterday, last evening, I was having a conversation with Rod. And Rod approached me with a question, which I very much appreciated him approaching me with. He sort of made a request for me to help him make a decision on a certain thing. Which led then to a conversation with Rod and I sitting here for quite some time, very revealing, I think, for both of us. And since he came to me in confidence, I didn't want to speak with you, so I asked him if I could speak about it this morning, and he said, of course. Because what he's looking at is something that we all look at from time to time, and I thought it would be very good to share it with you. So Rod asked me, or told me, he says, Wayne, I'm considering going to this here workshop or seminar, about 3 days long. Was it about 3 days, Rod? Something
Yes,
like that.
3 days.
Okay. 3 days long. And he said, I would like to ask you if I should go or not. I honor that question. I honor where it comes from. So I said, well, let's talk about it for a while. So we sat down here. And what Rod is looking at is, as I'm sure a lot of us have looked at. You know, if we look out there, there seems to be a lot of neat seminars that go on. I've certainly been to my share. And so there's a lot of neat seminars, and there's sort of this spiritual domain, like anything from how to meditate, which is not a bad thing to go to. You know, if there was a workshop out there that said how to meditate, someone asked me, should you go to it? I said, well, it probably couldn't do any good, wouldn't harm. You know, it's up to you. Do all sorts of things. So Rod was considering is considering going to this workshop, 3 days, about certain experiences that they'll have, certain exercises, all in the service of getting closer to knowing truth. That's not his words. Sort of like getting closer to knowing truth, or to having a revelation, whatever that is. It's common. We've all been there or are there. We would all like to know, what is this? What is that thing? And generally that's a good question, because generally the question, what is truth, or what is God, for many of us begins the spiritual search. So that's not bad. You know, we may be just all of our life, we're just sort of involved with work or family or whatever. And then all of a sudden one day something occurs to us, you know, well, what is this? It might be in church, it might be at some place. Well, what is this? What is this truth? And we sort of start getting interested in that, and that begins this spiritual search, which can take quite some time, or it can vanish in a second. So as we were talking about this thing, I said some things to Rod that I would like to say to you now, in case you ask me a similar question. So if you should come to me and ask me, Wayne, what do you think? Should I go to, I'll just make up a seminar. Should I go to this seminar on how to know God? My first response to you is, I won't tell you yes or no. That's not my decision to make. That's your decision to make. But I would certainly help us look. Let's look and see, what is it that you want? So what I said to Rod yesterday is, I said, okay, Rod, if you go to this particular seminar, which sounded like an interesting one, by the way, it sounded like they probably were going to do some interesting things and have some good experiences. I'm certainly not against. I'm not against experiences at all. So he informed me about what they were. And so I asked him, and this is the crucial question I've asked you before of you. What will you have after the seminar that you don't have now? That is the essential question. What will this seminar give you? Now, I'm not just talking with Rod anymore. I'm speaking with everybody who's considering something like this. And I'm not saying you shouldn't go to these things. But the thing is, you ask is, what will I have after this is over that I don't have now? Now, clearly, the way the mind answers it, and the way we would answer it, is, well, I would certainly have some more experiences, for sure. You would probably meet some interesting people. You would probably meet, if the facilitator is worth his or her salt, then you would probably meet a facilitator who is probably trying to do a very good job. You would probably participate in some very good exercises. Perhaps they might calm the mind down. They may cause you to look at something in a different way. All good stuff. All of it's good. So you could probably go to just about any given seminar or workshop, that would be anything that you would consider, that you would walk away with probably saying, if everything goes well, I'm glad I went. That was a good seminar, and they have their place. I'm not saying that these seminars out there are just no good for nothing. But that's not what I'm looking at, and that's not what this is, EOTS or Wayne or gatherings are all about. Because that is the essential question. What will you have after it's over that you don't have now, other than experiences? Granted, you will have more experiences. That's what life is about. Every day we wake up. Today we woke up at whatever time it was, And at the end of the day, when you lay your head down to go to sleep, you will have had, undoubtedly, at least one experience that you haven't had before. And it'll probably be pleasant, God willing, so to speak. So you'll have experiences, and as your life goes on, you'll have more and more. And my wish for you is that they be good ones. That you say, yes, I like that experience. I liked meeting that person. I liked having that experience. I liked that drug I took, or I liked that ice cream I ate, or whatever it is. Whatever is good for you, it's good for me. I'm happy. But, or, however, having said all of that, probably the only experience that you sort of said, well, how come I paid $500 for this? Or whatever the case may be. But of course, that's the way the world works. We get something, we pay money for it. We have no problem with that. But what will you have now, after it's over and you're driven home and you're now eating supper with your wife or your husband, your partner, you're eating there now. And you're talking about what a good time you had, and hopefully you did. Hopefully it was worth the while, worth the time, worth the effort that you spent there. And you're talking about, boy, I tell you, I met this here person in this dual exercise we did, and I really saw something I didn't see before. That's good. Great. But still, do you have beyond the level of experience, because that's what we're always pointing at, beyond the level of experience, what do you have now that you didn't have before you departed? And in the domain that we're pointing to, nothing has changed. It was there before you went to the seminar. It was there during the seminar, and it's there after the seminar. So Rod was with me with this, listening, knowing that I'm not trying to talk him out of not going to the seminar at all. I am not. But he was listening. We were in this conversation together. And I said, Rod, when you were a little boy in the Philippines, and growing up, what did you have then that you still have today as an adult? What is the commonality? Well, as a human being, of course, we start to look at the experiences. Well, I don't see much. I guess I'm still a man, a boy, a male. He didn't say this, and I'm probably this, but I don't see a heck of a lot that's the same. And on the level of experience, it isn't, because you've grown, you've had education, you've raised a family, all of these things. And the level I'm pointing at, and you really have to sort of hear that there, what is the same when you were a little boy, the same now, and it'll be the same after you've gone. Beyond the level of experience, that's where it's at. Beyond that level of experience, that, which in a sense is the ocean that supports all of these experiences that we have. That ocean was here before you were here. It's here now, and it'll be here long after you've gone. Long after this experience of your life is gone. That is. That is not affected by history. That is not affected by anything. It is here. And the more you hear this, the more you see this, the more you know this, the more it becomes a reality for you, in the sense that this life is just juice. It's good sometimes, it's bad sometimes, there's good experiences and bad experiences. But if you think that you're going to go to seminar to get something that you don't already have, you kind of got a sign on your back that says, kick me. Or take my money. You see, so it's not bad. It's just not going to give you something what you're looking for. Because when we're in the world of spirituality, there is all kinds of advertisements, there's all kinds of enticements to give you something that you think that you don't have. And in the world of experience, this world that we live in, that is so. That is so. That a seminar can give you something that you don't have in this world. But if you're going to a seminar to say, learn what truth is, stay home. Or go if you like. My advice is stay home. Because you're going to take it with you anyway. It's going to be there when you're there. It's going to walk out the door with you. It's just not something you can put in a notebook. And it's not something you can put in your pocket. And it's not something you can eat. It just is. You know, some people may say, well, Wayne, you keep on saying the same thing over and over again. I say, yeah, that's all I do. I just keep saying the same thing over and over, year after year, decade after decade. Yes.
Sorry. It reminds me of when...
By the way, you got my sweatshirt
I know.
on, too.
Yeah. I know, it's cold. It's your wife's fault she gave it to me. I remember when I was just like, I'd go to spiritual bookshops and I'd walk in there and I was like a kid in a candy store. Every single book I looked at, I thought, oh, this one looks great. And then you go to the next one, oh no, this one looks even better. And then you go to another one and I ended up, buying so many of those things. And every one I read out, it was like, it was fantastic, but it lasts for a little while. And then it was like, there was something, no, I need to go back to the bookshop and get another one because this one's run out of juice somehow.
Yes.
And it's that message that you're saying, of what Gangaji was saying last night on that video, was the same essential clarity, which is, what's it going to give you that in that domain that you don't have now? Because in the world, it can give you all sorts of goodies, but in that domain that it says it's going to give you, that's when you start to see, oh, I'm just doing it again. I'm picking up another book. What was it going to give me? This is mad.
One thing, exactly right. Man, I'm a bookstore junkie. I used to be. I don't do it much anymore. Although, if I walk by a bookstore, it's still a pull. Nothing wrong with that at all. I would never tell a person not to pick up a spiritual book, but it's an interesting, because I've had tons of spiritual books. Most of them I've given away. I've kept some core ones for myself. But I understand that. That looks like a new one. That's going to give me something. That's going to give me something. And so we do that. That's part of the spiritual search. And nothing wrong with that either. That's good. I mean, many of us like to go into a New Age bookstore, religious bookstore, whatever, and pick up some books. But I have found, and I still do it. I mean, I don't go out and buy books anymore. I don't think I've bought a spiritual book now. I don't know how long. It's been a long, long, long time, years. But I still do, of course, you see in my bookshelf, I do have some books. And the books that I have basically all say the same thing. Because what has happened in my reading, in my experience of most people that I know who I sort of listen to, is that in the beginning, I would walk into a bookstore, and let's say I would pick up a book by Ramana as an example. And I would read this book because my mindset and my thrust was, this can give me something. Okay? Or for years I was with Krishnamurti, right, and who I still revere. So I would read Krishnamurti, and I would sit in his presence, and I would listen to him, and studying and listening, because I knew he had something that he could give to me. Okay? And in the same way, when I started with Gangaji, I said, this woman can somehow give me something that I don't have. The switch, of course, was that I had it all along. But the books didn't necessarily change. And the Bible was another example. The Bible, which I have read probably 3 times in my life, and maybe 4 at the present time, is most I've ever read the Bible. But the Bible is another example. So, many people, as you know, and we may be one of them here, read the Bible for what we can get from it. But when this here sort of something momentarily usually happens, those books, we don't throw them away, but all of a sudden they're confirming what we know. Rather than them being able to give us something, instead of us reading the book and saying, yeah, I got to remember that. God darn it, that's good, because I don't do that. And I'm going to have to remember how to do that. And Jesus said to do this. Yeah, okay, I can see that. And then Ramana said, yeah, okay, listen, so I got to remember how to do that. And next time I see that person and I say, you son of a bitch, I'm going to have to remember to think, oh, forgive you, and all this sort of thing. So we sort of have to remember. See, we read these books like instruction manuals. We read the spiritual books the same way we read books in this world. Like if I pick up, I used to fly airplanes, so if I pick up a book, before I became a pilot, I'd say, how to fly. So that makes sense in this world, does it not? Of course it does. So I have to read how to fly before you do this, check your altimeter and all these sort of things. Finally get it down, I go and fly, the book will serve its purpose. But in the domain of spirituality, to try and read this as a book of instructions, which most people in my experience, at least in the beginning, do. I don't see any other way to do it actually. But they pick it up as a book of instructions. At a certain point in time, if they're fortunate, and God smiles on them as a matter of speaking, it goes bam, and it says, and I said, yes, that's exactly what happened to me. Yes, yes. And so all of a sudden, Ramana, Gangaji, Jesus, Buddha, and all these great teachers are saying, and you're saying, yes, of course, absolutely. Yes, it's not like a book of instruction anymore. It's because now you're coming from what you know in the core, because the books are all speaking as a sort of a confirmation. As a confirmation. They can be read two ways. They can actually be read as a book of instruction, which is maybe probably what has to happen at first. But when the switch does, you can see the same word. Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes I'll go into a bookstore and I'll see a book by somebody, usually somebody not well known. And I'll start paging through it, and I'll say, this person knows. This person knows. And so I might buy the book. Because it's sort of like this person who's writing, and you can recognize, you say, yeah, this person does know. And then you can pick up another book that looks almost the same, and you can say, this guy is writing what he hopes is true. You see what I'm saying? He hopes what he's saying is right. This guy over here knows. This guy hopes. And even though the words may look pretty close to the same, the energy that comes off of them is a little bit different. So you buy this book here and you wish this man well. Maybe he should go talk to that guy. Yes.
Bill and Susan and I were just talking about this morning about heart whispers and like how Susan had shared with me some of your old, really old, a few of your old posts, and you have been saying exactly the same thing all along,
Right.
Yes. Yeah, what else?
Yeah.
What else?
But it's
what
just
else
funny coming from our position to look back at those now, you
Yes.
see, because when we read them before, it's like,
Yes, that's a good example, Sue.
you see,
Isn't that amazing?
yeah,
Isn't that amazing that you can hold this minute, just as you can look at maybe something I said 5 or 6 years ago,
yeah,
and you can look at it now and say, well, my God. And when I read it the first time, I was saying, well, I'm not so sure what this guy knows what the hell he's talking about, right? And all of a sudden you say, yeah, I know exactly what he's saying. I mean, I've done it myself. Something like that. It's a confirmation. Very good. Bill?
And I've seen how easy it is to start with you, reading you as an instruction manual. Okay, now Wayne says I got to do this, and then do this, and then do this, and then at some point, an imperceptible point, there's the flip, and it's not an instruction manual anymore; it's a confirmation.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, for many people, their life doesn't change a bit. You see, we've said over and over and over again, this is not about making your life better. You don't come to a gathering, or you don't come and sit with Wayne, or you don't come and sit with Gangaji, or whoever it may be, because when you leave here, all of a sudden you're going to own the company. Or all of a sudden you're going to get that little boy you've always wanted all of your life. Or all of a sudden sex life is going to get better. I mean, come on. I've given you plenty of warning here. You may leave here and your sex life may get worse. or you may lose your job. This is not about that. But of course people come to places like this because they hope things will get better. Well, in terms of this world, maybe they will and maybe they won't. It's a coin toss, just like life is. But in the matters of what can't be spoken, it gets in. it gets in. If it did, how else would you know that you can read something a different way? You just do it. The proof is in itself. Yes.
Yeah, I've got a question, Wayne. I used to read a lot of Krishnamurti, and I had this question, I couldn't quite see what he was driving at. He'd gone page after page, and I was saying, since I've joined EOTS and I picked one off the shelf, and I just read it and a big smile. Oh, now I understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
But there's something else in him. He seems to be trying to save the world. Is that
Yes, yes.
and
Yes.
I couldn't quite figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, that's a common seeing of what he writes.
Yeah.
And you're not too far off the mark on that. Krishnamurti, as he got older, he got sort of adamant.
Right.
He almost became directive, and which is not bad, but when you're talking to a general audience, you sort of have to watch that a little bit, or the message that you want to get across will get lost. So basically, all of his books, I would say, don't pay any attention to them. Okay, I've read them all, except one, because most of Krishnamurti's writings, he wrote very little himself. They're basically transcripts of his talks and like that, which is okay. But the one book that is accessible is called Think on These Things. And I think I have it in there. If somebody hasn't taken it, I've had it about 10 copies. But Think on These Things is accessible. It's very easy to read, and you can kind of get what he's saying. But basically, Krishnamurti's message is, God, it's a tough one to put in a concise sentence. But his basic message is, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
You got, which is so. You know, no one can do it for you. I mean, I can't show truth to anybody because I can't even show it to myself. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All we can do is just keep on using what we have available to us, the tools that we have. So when he died, which was in 1986, I was going to go see him in, because he died in February 86, 87, whatever. I was going to go see him, and then the word came down that he was dying. Of course, he was 92 years old, 92 or 93. So, and he died of cancer. And I had a good friend who was there when he died. Krishnamurti said a statement that I looked at for a long time, and I kind of got it. But it's one of these sort of statements that you usually don't speak about, because there's a certain element of truth in it, but maybe an element of truth that you don't want to hear. He said, "No one ever heard me." And I really looked at that, because I sat with him for a long time, not only in person, but through his writings and teachings. He was, for me at that time, when I was he was my teacher. He was the teacher to me that was going to be the end of all teachers. But there was something in me that didn't quite get it, you see. I respected him. I revered him in a spiritual sense. But still, I said, okay, I guess this is as good as it gets. I'm just going to have to figure this thing out for myself. Because he wasn't accessible on an individual basis usually, because he had a tremendous worldwide audience. You know, it's like being President Bush or Billy Graham or something like that. You know, you can't go up and talk to these people because there's too many people around.